Have you ever felt fear creeping into your mind like a quiet shadow? It doesn't scream, it doesn't roar, but it's there slowing you down, making your steps hesitant, even when your heart wants to move forward. Maybe it's a restless night, a decision you keep delaying, an opportunity that slipped away just because you were afraid. Fear doesn't really come from the situation itself, it comes from how we think about it. It's not about what will happen, but about what might happen. And the truth is, most of the things we fear, they never actually happen. But let me ask you something. If a Zen master can sit still in the middle of a mountaintop storm, calm, unshaken, is it because he has no fear? He knows fear, but he doesn't let it control him. The secret isn't in eliminating fear. It's in learning to live with it with awareness. That's what Zen masters and samurai warriors have practiced for centuries. They didn't aim to defeat fear. They learned to stand steady with it. And that changes everything. Sometimes it's not a giant leap that frees you from fear. It's just one small step. But you have to take it. That's the spirit of Kaizen, the Japanese way of transformation through small, consistent, mindful steps. Because when you don't force yourself to do something overwhelming, your mind stays calm. It doesn't sound the alarm, and fear has no reason to hold you back. So the question is, how do we live like a Zen master grounded in the wind? How do we walk like a samurai moving forward with dignity, even when we don't know the outcome? And how do we, day by day, move forward even just a little instead of standing still in the box of anxiety? Let's walk into this journey together, where you'll discover timeless practices that helped generations of Zen masters and warriors move through fear with awareness, with breath, and with the quiet power of every step. 1. The Samurai Mindset. Acting in the presence of fear. There's an old story about a samurai standing at the edge of a life-or-death battle. His eyes calm, his grip firm on the sword, but his heart undisturbed by the question of living or dying. A young student beside him, trembling, asked, "Master, aren't you afraid?" The samurai looked out at the red horizon and replied gently, "Of course I am, but I've accepted the fact that I may die. And only by letting go of the need to survive am I truly free to fight." At first, it might sound like a lofty ideal, but it's closer to everyday life than we think. Because no one lives without fear. We fear losing our job. We fear rejection in love. We fear being alone. We fear starting over at 40. Or sometimes, we just fear stepping out of our comfort zone. But like the ancient warriors, we modern humans face battles too, not with swords, but with daily decisions. And what paralyzes us isn't real danger, it's the thought of what could go wrong, failure, judgment, loss. The Buddha taught, all suffering comes from attachment. When we cling too tightly to outcome success, love, safety, fear starts to grow. Because what if we don't get it? The Samurai Mindset offers a profound Buddhist lesson. It's not about not being afraid. It's about not letting fear take the wheel. It's about acting with all your heart, without clinging to the result. Just like a general entering battle, if he fears losing, his mind scatters. But if he accepts that defeat is part of the warrior's path, he fights with clarity and calm. I once met a woman who came to the monastery overwhelmed. She was turning 50, had just lost her job, and was terrified of what came next. She said, "I feel like I'm standing on a battlefield, with nothing in my hands." But after days of meditation and deep reflection, she realized something. Her greatest fear wasn't about the situation. It was about not accepting that she might fail, that she might have to start over, that she might need to go slower. And only when she let go of the idea of, I need to know exactly where this is going, did she begin to feel lighter. She shared how, one morning, she woke up, didn't rush, didn't try to figure it all out. She just sat, had a cup of tea, and let the sunlight come through the window. She smiled. Not because she had the answers, but because she had learned to be fully present, even when the future was still uncertain. That is the first step of freedom, just like the samurai, who finds freedom by accepting death. The Buddhist practitioner, who understands impermanence, doesn't crumble in the face of loss. And everyday people like you and me, when we begin to see the nature of fear clearly, we stop fighting with it. We learn to walk with it with presence. Fear doesn't disappear. It's still there like wind on a mountaintop. But the goal isn't to stop the wind. It's to stand steady, even when the wind is howling. No one teaches this better than the samurai. Real strength doesn't come from muscle or a blade. It comes from a mind that's not bound by clinging. In Buddhist teachings, there's a beautiful image of a raft crossing the river. The raft is a tool. It helps you get to the other shore. But once you're there, you put it down. You don't carry the raft on your back. In the same way, we take action. We do what needs to be done, but we don't carry the heavy burden of expectations. Don't let the weight of, I must win, make you too afraid to try. Just take a step honest, mindful, because the truly courageous ones aren't those who've never trembled. They're the ones who keep walking, even while their hands still shake. That's the spirit of the samurai. And that is the heart of the Buddhist path in this modern life. If you're standing at the edge of a difficult choice, a change you didn't expect, or just the fog of an unclear tomorrow, remember this. You don't have to be fearless to move forward. You just have to stop letting fear hold you back. Take a breath. Loosen your grip. And take that one small, steady step like a warrior of awareness, living this life with heart. 2. The breath, a gateway back to peace. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment. Your heart starts beating faster than usual. A message left unread, an unexpected phone call, a big decision waiting ahead. And without even noticing, your breath gets short, fast, shallow. In those moments, the one thing keeping your body and mind from falling apart is your breath. Breathing, something we've done every day since the moment we were born, is often forgotten. But in Buddhist teachings, the breath isn't just a sign of life. It's a doorway, a way to come back home, back to ourselves. When fear takes hold, the mind spins out. And the body? It reacts as if a tiger were about to pounce, even if it's just an unanswered email or an awkward meeting. The Buddha called it the illusion of the mind, because most of what we fear isn't actually real. It's imagined. And when the mind spins, the body follows. Your shoulders tense. Your chest tightens. Your breath becomes shallow, no longer flowing like a fresh, clean stream. But if you pause, just for a few seconds, take a deep breath in and slowly let it out, something shifts. In retreats, I've heard this story from so many students. At first, they thought meditation meant they had to stop their thoughts, to push away the fear, to force calm, to appear right away. But no, all they had to do was follow the breath. Not control it, not force it. Just notice, I'm breathing in. And then, I'm breathing out. It's like being lost in a foggy forest and suddenly spotting a tiny flicker of light in the distance. That light is your breath. It's the sign that there's still a way back. A wise Japanese Zen master once said, "When you're afraid, don't try to chase fear away. Sit with it, breathe with it, not to defeat it, but to remember you're still here. That one line holds a whole universe of mindfulness. In Buddhist meditation, the breath doesn't just soothe the nerves, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part that tells your body, you're safe, it's okay now. And from there, a new space opens the space of awareness, calm, and clarity. Here in the U.S., I've worked with many people facing chronic anxiety, especially in busy city life. One man, 62 years old, a lawyer, came to our winter retreat after 2 panic attacks in a row. During his first guided session, all he was asked to do was place his hand on his belly and take a slow, deep breath. And he cried, not out of pain, but because for the first time in years, he felt like he was truly breathing. No bracing, no running, no trying to stay in control. Just air going in and air going out. And with that breath, his fear started to dissolve. That's where his healing began. From that day on, he started each morning not with emails or stress, but with 5 quiet minutes of breathing. When stress rose during the day, he didn't snap. He breathed in, felt the trembling in his chest, and breathed out with the fear. He didn't become someone who no longer feared. He became someone who could stay with his fear without getting swept away. The Buddha said, return to your breath and you return to yourself. You don't have to go anywhere. Peace is something you can touch with just one conscious breath. It sounds simple, but maybe that's exactly what we're missing in today's world. The world isn't short on comfort, but it's missing stillness. It's not short on advice, but it's lacking presence. And the breath, it's a gift we all carry. But so few of us remember to use it when we truly need it. So, the next time your day feels chaotic, or your heart feels lost, tell yourself gently, breathe first, then decide what to do. Because when the breath deepens, the mind clears. And when the mind clears, fear no longer rules you. 3. Kaizen. Transforming fear with small steps. There's a common misunderstanding many people still carry. That to overcome fear, we need one big push. A dramatic, movie-style moment where the main character closes their eyes, leaps forward, and suddenly, all fear vanishes in an instant. But real life doesn't work that way. In real life, fear doesn't disappear just because we clench our fists and power through once. It returns, quietly, consistently, sometimes even more subtly than before. In the meditation world, there's a teaching that holds true again and again. If you want to go far, you must first learn how to walk slowly. And there's no better expression of that truth than the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen, a way of life born after the war, rooted in steady mindfulness, and oddly enough, deeply in tune with the teachings of the Buddha. So what is Kaizen? It means small, continuous improvement. No pressure for breakthrough. No need to succeed fast. Just make a little progress each day, even if it's just a tiny step. I remember a woman in her early 50s who came to the temple after a painful divorce. She was living in fear, afraid of being alone, afraid to start over, afraid of being judged. When asked, what would you do if you had to face your biggest fear right now? She gave a soft, tired smile and said, honestly, I think I'd just disappear from the world. But instead of forcing herself to face everything head-on, she began with the smallest of steps. The first day, she simply walked around her block for 10 minutes, something that seemed so basic, but for her, at that time, it felt like climbing a mountain. The next day, she walked a little farther and spoke to the flower vendor on the corner. A week later, she signed up for a painting class, not to become an artist, but to open her heart to something new. 3 months later, she told us, "I don't see fear as an enemy anymore. It's more like a scared little child inside me. And if I gently take its hand, step by step, it starts to quiet down." That is the heart of Kaizen. In Buddhism, every transformation begins with patient mindfulness. No Zen master ever became enlightened overnight. No bodhisattva was born with infinite compassion. Every one of them walked the same path, step by step, breath by breath, day by day. It's like sweeping the courtyard of a monastery. No one can clear all the fallen leaves in a single sweep. But if each morning the temple keeper sweeps just a few meters more, by the end of the week, the entire courtyard is clean not because of force, but because of steady effort. Kaizen doesn't shout, "Be fearless now." It simply whispers, "Take one more step today, and tomorrow take another." And fear, when no longer fed by avoidance or panic, slowly begins to shrink. In the middle-length discourses of the Buddha, there's a story about a mountain climber. No one reaches the peak in a single leap. But if the climber places each foot carefully and doesn't freeze in fear at every rocky patch, they will slowly but surely reach the summit. And so it is with us. Many dreams have been left behind simply because we think we're not ready yet. Many important changes have been postponed just because they looked too big, too far away. But if we break them down, the way Kaizen teaches, each piece becomes more breathable. Fear stops looking like a towering wall and becomes just bricks. And every day we remove one brick, gently, patiently, without forcing ourselves to rush. One student once asked a monk, "Master, I'm terrified of public speaking. I freeze. I forget everything." The monk replied, "Then tomorrow, speak to yourself in the mirror, just 3 sentences. The next day, speak to a close friend. A week later, speak to 3 people. And a month after that, the same student delivered a short talk to an entire group. No magic. Just Kaizen, quiet, repeated, steady steps. In modern life, we're often obsessed with speed and achievement. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is slow down. Not because you're weak, but because you know what you need and you're patient enough to walk toward it, no matter how long it takes. So if your heart today is holding a fear, don't pressure yourself to get over it immediately. Just ask, what is the smallest thing I can do today to get one step closer to freedom? And then do that thing. Tomorrow, do it again. No more, no less. Just don't stop. 4. Mindfulness. Living deeply in the present means living without fear. There's something strange that many of us have experienced. Even when we're sitting in a warm, safe room, no threat in sight, the mind can still make us feel like we're walking a tightrope over a deep, dark canyon. Not because something bad is actually happening, but because the past still hasn't been let go. And the future hasn't arrived, yet it already makes our heart uneasy. Maybe it's a mistake we haven't forgiven, a missed opportunity, a painful word someone once said, or a vague worry one we can't quite name, but that still makes our chest tighten. The human mind tends to dwell in what has already happened or what hasn't happened yet. But the body can only exist in the present. And that's exactly why, when the mind and body are no longer in the same place, we feel tired, empty, and anxious. That's where mindfulness becomes the bridge. In Buddhist teaching, mindfulness isn't some faraway mystical state. It's simply being fully present with whatever is here, right now. No judgment, no running, no projecting. A Zen master once said, "We don't suffer because of what's happening. We suffer because of how we think about it." And most fear It doesn't come from reality, but from the stories the mind makes up. I remember a middle-aged man who told me he lived in constant fear of losing his job. Not because he hated it, not because he was in any real danger, but because his mind kept replaying thoughts like, what if they cut staff? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm no longer needed? His mind was stuck in the future while his body was still sitting in the office. And every time that happened, he couldn't breathe deeply. He couldn't enjoy his meals. He couldn't sleep well. It was only after he started practicing mindfulness, doing something as simple as drinking water in silence, feeling each sip pass through his throat, that he began to realize, right now, in this very moment, nothing is threatening me. It's just the mind imagining, and the body getting pulled along. The Buddha taught, the past is gone. The future is not yet here. The present is the only place where life can truly be lived and transformed. And yet most of us lose the present, dragged away by non-stop thinking. But mindfulness doesn't require deep meditation or escaping to the mountains. It can begin with the simplest things. Being aware of each step as we walk, noticing each bite as we eat, knowing that we're breathing instead of letting it happen unconsciously. I once met a 70-year-old man at a weekend retreat. He told me that all his life, he chased success, made money, cared for his family, but always felt anxious and empty. It wasn't until after his wife passed away that he realized something. I was never really there during our meals. I sat at the table, but my mind was somewhere else. His tears that day weren't only for his loss. They were for the years he didn't truly live. Mindfulness won't rewind time, but it makes each moment richer so that when we look back, there's no regret. When mindfulness is present, fear begins to lose its grip, because fear needs a context. It lives in the past, or it takes root in the future. But in the present, if we're deeply here, fully aware, there's no room left for it to grow. People often ask, how do I stop being afraid? And the answer isn't to fight the fear. It's to stop feeding it by bringing the mind back to this moment, to what's really happening. A Zen master once compared the human mind to a glass of muddy water. The more you stir it, the cloudier it gets. Only when you set it down and let it rest does it begin to clear. Mindfulness is the act of setting the glass down, not to force anything, not to push fear away, just to pause, take a breath, and know I'm here. In that moment, you don't need to fix your entire life. You just need to be fully present with the life that's here now. And if fear is there, it will be gently lit by the light of your presence. 5. The wind doesn't go away, but you can still stand firm. There's an old Zen story that's been passed down for generations. Not just because it's deep, but because every time we hear it again, we find ourselves in it. It goes like this. A samurai famous on the battlefield, fearless in the face of enemies, carried a deep unease inside. It wasn't fear of death. It was the emptiness he felt when he was alone. At night, when the world was quiet, when there was no one left to fight. In that silence, the real fear would appear louder than swords clashing on armor. So he climbed a mountain to find a wise Zen master who lived in seclusion. And he got straight to the point. Master, I don't fear death, but I can't handle this emptiness inside. When the night comes, thoughts torture me. How do I become invincible, even in my mind? The master didn't answer. He simply said, come with me. They walked to a cliff where the wind howled wildly. Below them, a deep, endless drop. The master stepped right to the edge, closed his eyes, and stood still. His robe whipped in the wind. Panicked, the samurai rushed forward. Master, be careful. The wind is too strong. It'll carry you away. But the master stood there, calm, breathing. After a while, he opened his eyes and asked, "Can you hear the wind?" "Yes," the warrior replied. "It's strong. And yet, you see I'm still standing here, don't you?" "Yes." "Then the wind is still blowing. But if we stop resisting, if we just stand firm, it cannot carry us away." Silence fell between them. Then the master added, softly, "The wind is fear. It doesn't disappear. It's still there. But if you stop struggling with it, stop trying to force it away, you'll learn to stand in the wind, in life." That's a powerful teaching, because most of the time, we're not suffering because of reality. We suffer because we resist it. The more we run from fear, the stronger it gets. The more we try to make it go away, the more it haunts us. In Buddhist wisdom, this is called resistance brings suffering. Fear, on its own, is not suffering. But when we reject it, deny it, try to erase it, that's when pain begins. A young woman once came to the monastery, trying to overcome her fear of being betrayed in love. She said, "I can't sleep. I keep imagining he'll leave me." Her teacher didn't say, "Don't be afraid." Instead, they simply told her, "Each time you feel anxious, sit. Feel it in your body. Don't analyze. Don't label it. Just feel, where does it tighten? Your chest, your belly, your shoulders?" At first, she was terrified. But over time, through daily meditation, she learned to sit with her fear. Not avoid it. Not judge it. Just be there with it. And she realized the fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. That's the art of standing in the wind. Not making the wind stop, but learning not to be swept away. The samurai in the story didn't walk away fearless. He walked away no longer paralyzed by fear. Like bamboo, not hard, like stone, but flexible. When the wind blows, it bends, but it doesn't break. And when the wind passes, it stands tall again, even stronger than before. There's a verse in the Samyutta Nikaya where the Buddha says, "In the swirling current of life, the awakened one is not swept away." It's not about never feeling pain, not about being fearless. It's about staying with the fear with a steady heart. And sometimes, all you need to do is pause for a moment. Do nothing. Just stand still, breathe, and tell yourself, "The wind is blowing, but I'm still here." You don't have to be hard like a rock, just soft like water. You don't have to conquer fear. Just don't let it control you. 6. A mind that doesn't react, the root of inner freedom. The older we get, the more we begin to realize something. It's not really the situation that exhausts us. It's not even other people's words that hurt us. It's how we respond to all of it. A harsh comment lands, one person explodes, another just smiles. A sudden change hits some collapse, others quietly adapt. And then it clicks. Suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from a mind that can't stop reacting. The Buddha pointed this out clearly in his teachings. When the mind isn't mindful, waves arise. When the mind doesn't pause, illusions grow. Fear, which is just a cloud, turns into a storm the moment we cling to it, fight it, or resist it. A wise Zen teacher once said something beautifully simple. Freedom doesn't begin when we can control everything. It begins when we're no longer forced to react to everything. I remember a woman who shared her story during a weekend retreat. She was a full-time working single mom, carrying the weight of her whole family. One day, her young son accidentally broke a ceramic bowl, one that belonged to her late husband. She said in that moment, heat rushed through her body. She wanted to scream, blame, cry. But then, a small voice inside reminded her of something a teacher once said. When emotions rise, don't react. Just pause and watch it like a cloud passing by. So she stepped back, took a deep breath, and asked calmly, "Did you cut your hand?" Her son shook his head. She nodded, and the two of them cleaned up together. Later, she said, "That was one of the freest moments of my life. Not because the bowl wasn't important, but because she didn't turn that moment of loss into a second wound." The Buddha taught, when the first arrow strikes, it hurts. But when we respond with anger and blame, we shoot ourselves with a second, then a third. The wise don't try to erase the first arrow. They just choose not to fire anymore. Practicing non-reactivity doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means looking deeper into our emotions, understanding that fear, anger, sadness are all just passing weather. If we don't touch them, don't hold on to them, they'll eventually drift away. You'll see this clearly in silent meditation. At first, the mind goes wild, a thought arises, triggers a memory, stirs anxiety. But if you just sit there, observe, like someone standing at the riverbank, watching the water flow, it all begins to settle. Not because the mind stops being messy, but because you stop getting pulled into it. Someone once asked a Zen master, "How do you stay peaceful in such a chaotic world?" He smiled and said, "I don't stay peaceful. I just don't join the chaos." Simple words, but not so easy to live. Because life keeps throwing things at us. Bad news, harsh words, setbacks, unwanted changes. But true freedom doesn't come from controlling the river. It comes from not letting yourself be swept away by it. It's like standing in front of a crying child. If you react quickly, you might scold or get upset. But if you pause, really look, you'll realize the child doesn't need correction. The child needs a hug. And our minds are just like that. When fear arises, pause. Instead of asking, "How do I stop being afraid?" ask, "Where's this coming from? Where do I feel it in my body? And can I just sit here with it without doing anything?" It won't be easy at first. But over time, this practice opens up a whole new space. A space where we're no longer ruled by automatic reactions. A space where we choose how to respond to life. A space called inner freedom. 7. Meditation, sitting down to stand strong. In a world that's constantly rushing forward, where everything seems to move faster every single day, just sitting still can often be misunderstood. Some think it's passive, weak, maybe even a form of escape. But anyone who's truly practiced meditation knows sitting still doesn't mean doing nothing. It's a conscious act, a powerful choice to turn inward, to face what we usually ignore while chasing everything outside. In Buddhism, meditation isn't about running away from life. It's a path that helps us walk right through it with clarity, peace, and understanding. As one Zen master said, "The weak react, the strong endure, but the truly grounded, they sit down and observe." Observe what exactly? Fear, anger, insecurity, the waves that keep tossing us around until we actually sit and look at them straight on. One meditation student once shared his experience during a 7-day silent retreat. He arrived with a heart full of scars, job loss, a broken marriage, self-worth in shambles. He thought meditation would help him get away from it all. But on the very first day, he said, "I've never felt such suffering. Thoughts came in like a storm, all painful memories." And the teacher simply said, "Don't try to push them away. Just breathe. Watch them like they don't belong to you." Day 2, day 3, day 4, the pain stayed. But by day 6, something shifted. He stopped trying to escape. He sat with it like sitting with an old friend who once hurt you, but now you realize they were lost too. They were hurting too. And in that moment, the fear didn't vanish, but it lost its grip, not because it disappeared, but because he was looking at it from a different place inside himself. Meditation doesn't demand perfection. All it asks is that each day we take a few minutes to sit down, spine upright, breathing naturally, and look inward. No need to force silence. No need to empty the mind. Just notice what's present without judging it. So what is fear? It's a sensation in the body, a story the mind tells, a voice that whispers, "Don't go there. It's dangerous." But if we keep running from it, we'll never know. Was that voice even telling the truth? When we sit with awareness, we begin to see fear like every emotion has a beginning and an end. It rises like a wave, and if we don't stir it further, it fades, just like it came. The Buddha himself sat beneath the Bodhi tree for 49 days, not to do something extraordinary, but to sit still, to face every illusion, every temptation, every fear within his own heart. And from that stillness, from not running, not resisting wisdom arose. He saw clearly that nothing is permanent, that suffering comes from clinging and reaction, that even fear is just a cloud passing through the vast sky of the mind. One young student once asked, "Master, why is my mind so restless when I meditate?" And the teacher smiled. "You don't meditate to get rid of restlessness. You meditate to see it clearly without getting swept away." That's the quiet power of meditation. It doesn't promise to make us invincible, but it helps us stand strong even in the storm. Some fears may never completely leave us, but if each day we can sit with them without running, without resisting, we begin building something steady inside. A quiet kind of courage, rooted, not loud, like a tree grounded deep in the earth. Its branches may sway in the wind, but its roots remain unmoved. We don't have to be stronger than anyone else, just steadier than we were yesterday. And meditation is a very real, very grounded way to get there. 8. Change your self-talk. Transform fear into learning. Have you ever been in a moment of anxiety and suddenly heard that voice in your head? "I'm definitely going to fail. No one cares what I have to say. This is too much for me to handle." That voice isn't someone else talking. It's the familiar whisper inside your own mind, the kind of self-talk we've repeated for years. Here's the thing. The mind believes what we tell it, if we tell it often enough. And this inner language, though invisible, has the power to shape our attitude, our actions, and even our future. In Buddhism, this isn't surprising at all. The Buddha taught, all things are created by the mind. The mind leads every action. If the mind is polluted, suffering follows. But if the mind is pure, peace follows like a shadow that never leaves. One older woman once shared in a Dharma talk that she spent most of her life believing, "I don't deserve to be loved." No one ever said that to her. But after a broken marriage and some harsh words from family, she began repeating that belief to herself quietly, day after day. And every time a new relationship began, or a chance to express herself came along, she'd retreat from the inside out before anyone else could reject her. When she began practicing mindfulness and meditation, she wasn't told to fix other people. The very first thing she was invited to do was to simply observe what she was saying to herself every day. One day, she looked into the mirror and softly said, "I'm learning to love this person again," not to pretend, but to plant a new seed. From that day forward, instead of saying, "I'll mess everything up," she would say, "I'm learning how to do this better." Instead of, "I'm not good enough," she'd take a breath and whisper, I'm growing. The words changed, but more importantly, the energy inside her shifted. People often think healing comes from something big, a retreat, a life crisis, a breakthrough. But sometimes, healing begins with just one sentence, said quietly, repeated with awareness. And that becomes a kind of mantra, a prayer for the heart. A middle-aged man once, a CFO, went through bankruptcy and didn't leave the house for 3 months. He said the same sentence played in his head every single day. You're a failure. And each day, he believed it a little more. Until one meditation session, his teacher said, listen to what you're telling yourself. Then ask, if your best friend were in your shoes, would you say that to them? He broke down in tears. And from that day, he slowly began to change his inner voice. I failed at something, but I'm not a failure. I'm learning how to start again. Slowly, step by step. That shift in self-talk was like fresh water softening dry earth. It didn't make fear disappear, but this time, he didn't keep repeating fear like an old song. He repeated belief and patience. In Buddhism, the mind is often compared to a field. Each word we say is a seed. If we keep planting seeds like, I can't, I'm not worthy, or I'll never make it, then even with sunlight, all that will grow is fear and self-doubt. But if we start planting, I'm learning, I'm moving forward, I might be wrong, but I'm growing, then one day, a flower of quiet confidence will bloom. As the Dhammapada says, the mind leads all speech and action. It follows us like a shadow. How we think is how we live. What we say to ourselves becomes the road we walk. So today, if there's a sentence playing on repeat in your mind, pause for a moment. Ask, is this sentence feeding fear or feeding growth? And if it's fear, gently change it. You don't have to change the whole world. Just one sentence, repeated with awareness. That's enough to begin. 9. Fear is just a shadow, and the light of awareness makes it fade. There's a simple but profound image a Zen master once shared during an afternoon Dharma talk. He said, fear is like a shadow. It's not real, but when there's no light, it can look like a monster. And how true that is. Often, we're not afraid of what's actually happening. We're afraid of what we can't see clearly. We fear loss because we don't truly understand what's keeping us attached. We fear change because we can't see what lies ahead. And in that foggy space, fear grows just like a shadow stretching across a wall under dim light. But once there's light, the light of awareness, of understanding, of acceptance, the shadow has nowhere left to hide. Not because we chased it away, but because we saw it for what it really was and stopped mistaking it for truth. One young practitioner, during a fall retreat, shared that he was haunted by a vague, nameless fear. He said he constantly worried that he wasn't good enough, that he'd fall behind, or never amount to anything. It made him avoid opportunities, shy away from challenges, and live in a closed shell even though he looked successful on the outside. When asked to write down his greatest fear, he sat staring at a blank page for over 30 minutes. And all he could write was, I don't know what I'm afraid of, but it's always there. That was when the meditation teacher gently told him, you don't need to find the answer. Just sit with that feeling every day, in silence. No analyzing, no labeling. Just breathe and bring mindfulness to what's there. He began to observe, not with judgment, but with breath. He noticed how his body tightened in the belly, the chest, the throat. And instead of running from it, he simply smiled. Not because everything was okay, but because he could finally see what was going on. After 2 weeks, he said, the fear is still there, but now I see it. I'm no longer being pushed around by it like before. In Buddhism, the light doesn't come from outside. The light is inner awareness, when the mind is no longer lost in imagined disasters or buried in confusion. It's when we can see fear without letting it cloud our vision. There's a beautiful image in traditional Zen. In a dark room full of shadows, you don't need to fight the darkness with a stick. You don't scream at the shadows. You just light a lamp, and the shadows dissolve on their own. The Dhammapada says, "No darkness can ever overcome the light of a mind that is awake." That's not just a quote to admire. It's a truth to live with. Many people carry childhood fears, fear of being left out, judged, or hurt, and they spend their whole lives covering it up with achievements, perfection, or toughness. But only when they finally sit down, in stillness, and dare to light that lamp within, does the darkness begin to fade. Not all at once, but little by little, with each breath of awareness, with each moment of stillness, with each time we pause during a panic and ask, "Is what I'm feeling truly dangerous or just a shadow my mind is projecting?" In a retreat for older adults, a retired doctor once shared, "I spent my whole life healing others, but I didn't realize what I feared most was sitting still with nothing to do." That fear had no name, but it was always hiding in the corners of his heart. And only when he began meditating did he realize it wasn't loneliness he feared. It was facing himself. Because he had never learned to light the lamp within, only how to live under the light of the outside world. From then on, he began journaling, practicing mindful breathing, and every morning he whispered to himself, "Today, I'll sit still and make peace with my own shadow." The truth is, we all have dark corners we haven't seen yet. And that's okay. The spiritual path isn't about running from the dark. It's about slowly, gently lighting up one corner of the mind at a time. 10. Letting go, the root of inner peace. There's a simple image often used in meditation, yet it carries a deep truth about life. A clenched fist. Try it now. Tighten your hand into a fist. Hold it for a few seconds. Now, release it. What you feel first isn't pain. It's relief, lightness. And just like that, most of the fear we carry doesn't actually come from the outside world. It comes from how tightly we hold on inside. We cling to a person and fear losing them. We cling to an image and fear getting hurt if we can't live up to it. We cling to an outcome and feel anxious when things don't go as planned. The tighter we hold, the more we suffer. Because, as the Buddha taught, everything in this life is impermanent. No one, nothing, no emotion will last the way we wish it would. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean surrendering in defeat. It simply means stopping the fight to control what was never ours to hold. One elder monk once shared a story from his days as a young novice. During a flood relief visit to a village, he saw an old man crying in the ruins of his home. But the man wasn't mourning the house. He was desperately trying to save a toppled ancestral altar, swept away by the flood. He cried, fought the currents, tried to rescue what was already gone. The monks urged him to stop, but he wouldn't listen. When the water receded, the altar was lost, and the man was exhausted. At the time, the young monk didn't understand why the man clung so hard. But years later, he realized, we don't suffer because we lose things. We suffer because we can't accept that loss is part of life. When we grip tightly, we place all our peace into something outside ourselves. And the moment that thing shakes, we shake with it. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, where there is attachment, there is fear. Where there is no attachment, there is no fear. Attachment here doesn't just mean love. It means clinging to roles, to reputation, to people, to outcomes we want to control. And it's that very clinging that binds us. A woman once came to the temple after her husband passed away. She said, "I know he's gone, but I can't let him go in my heart." Every day, she lit incense, talked to him, cried, and blamed herself for not keeping him alive longer. The meditation teacher gently asked, "If he were still here, how would he want you to live?" She fell silent for a long time. Then she cried, but this time, they were the first tears of acceptance. She didn't let go of her love. She let go of the idea that life has to happen my way for me to be happy. And that small shift freed her from the invisible chain she had carried for months. Letting go is actually an act of compassion for yourself. When we stop chasing life to match the script in our minds, we begin to live with life as it naturally unfolds. A Zen master once said, "It's not the wave that sinks the boat, it's when the water gets in." The world may be turbulent, but if we don't let the world enter our mind, we can still remain steady. And that steadiness begins with one simple act. Let go just a little. Let go of expectations. Let go of control. Let go of the question, why isn't life going my way? One man, 60 years old, lost everything in an investment collapse. He said, "I wasn't afraid of losing money. I was afraid of people seeing me as a failure." He clung so tightly to that image, he stopped going out, stopped showing up, until one day, during silent meditation, he whispered to himself, "My dignity isn't in how others see me, it's in how I face myself." That one sentence was like a blade cutting the invisible rope he'd tied around his own heart. No one told him to get over it. He just let go a little, and he could breathe again. And as we've walked together through these waves of fear, from understanding its nature, to sitting quietly with it, to taking small steps through Kaizen, to changing the way we talk to ourselves, to finally releasing our grip on what we cling to, we come to one profound realization. You don't have to wait until the fear is gone to live. Courage has never meant being fearless. It means you still move even when your hands tremble. You still stay present even when your heart is anxious. You still open up even when it hurts. Because we understand, the light doesn't wait for the darkness to disappear before it shines. It shines, and the darkness fades because of it. And if there's one thing to carry with you from this journey, let it be this gentle reminder. You are not alone. Fear isn't a flaw. It's a sign that your heart is still alive, still longing for healing, still waiting to be seen with compassion and understanding. If something in this video touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to Buddhism Seeds, so each week you have a space to pause and come home to yourself. Don't forget to like, share this with someone who could use a little light, and leave a comment what part of today's message made you stop, reflect, or smile. Buddhism Seeds, where the seeds of peace are planted with compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you again in the next video.